Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show presented by PrizePicks. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking at the beginning of the show, the 8-game main slate, and at the back end, we'll cover the early slate, 3-gamer. Excited, smash that like button, subscribe button. That is the best thing you can do to keep this channel churning. To be able to subscribe, also, you're going to make some money because we have guys, I don't know, there's a NASCAR guy that I know. He's okay at baseball, too. He's all right. Chris Pinnell, how you doing, my dude?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm all right at baseball.
He's okay. Go follow him at Chris Pinnell 16, I believe, on the Twitters. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Look at that. I can read. It's amazing. How you doing this fine morning?
Doing well. I figured out we have the same dog name, which is absolutely awesome.
We have two Dukes in the house. We got Duke over here in the corner chewing on a bone, and you've got Duke. Where is your Duke?
He's at my mom's house right now.
Oh, look at that. That was the most wholesome thing I've ever heard on a show here ever, which isn't that hard. It's like being the cutest girl in South Dakota. I don't know. We're not going to go there. Shout out to my home state, South Dakota. I love it.
Before we go too far, I think your mic gain on your audio is like a little hot because like you're coming in a little super hot. Loud. Yeah, you're freaking.
I'm loud. Is that on me or is that on you?
I can't really do much more on my end.
Well then, let me do this. How does that sound? Look at that. See, Tyler, just getting it going right from the get-go. I'd rather have him do it now than get 3 games through this and be that asshole who's like, by the way, your mic sucks and has to send it in Slack. And then I have to bring up Slack 4 times, yada, yada, yada. Tyler Zander in the house, crushing the game. He went to a Bon Jovi concert yesterday that sucked. That's sad times. He did one of these. Maybe it's better than what he said, but we should get into this. We've got, 11 games to get through here. It's probably going to take more than an hour. Let's all just accept that. Probably just maybe like 5 minutes over. You got 5 extra minutes for me, Chris?
I could probably make some time.
Look at that. He's an absolute stud, professional of the people. Tyler, I don't care about your time. Miami, minus 135, 7 total runs here going up against Washington. Fetty on the mound from the Washington side. Again, I forgot you don't know Boy Meets World, so that makes it less fun. But Pablo Lopez has been outrageous at the beginning of this season. How do you feel about pitchers here in this spot?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know every time Eric Fetty's on the mound, I always want to end up stacking against him, and often it does not work. I don't know why. He's a low K rate pitcher, 21.8%. He walks a decent amount, 8.1%. But on the other side, Pablo Lopez definitely looks like an intriguing option, and he's certainly not going to be as high on as some others on the slate. You have Shohei Ohtani on the mound tonight, who's going to pick up a ton of ownership versus Cleveland. So I think Lopez is a pretty decent pivot up top. Is he expensive? Yes, on both sites, but we're talking about a guy with a 3.2 xFIP, 27.5% K rate. I think he looks like a pretty good option here.
I'm with you. He just seems like the guy that is going to go slept on. We just saw Shohei Ohtani eviscerate, and I mean eviscerate, a Houston team that doesn't strike out very much, probably won't strike out much compared to the league average, but you compare him to some of these guys up top, and I think it's just a spot where I want to be invested if he's going to be 10%, and you're going to see 30% plus of the top 4 guys there. Sure, 15.8% top 2 pitcher percentage isn't as good, but it's only slightly behind Christian Javier, 0.2%. Jordan Montgomery, 2.2%. Hard to believe that I'm not going to get to some of him in tournaments. In cash games, don't play a 9,900 Pablo Lopez. Don't do that. But you absolutely should here in tournaments. Is that kind of safe to say, Chris?
Yeah, totally. He's definitely overpriced for cash games, but it's certainly a really good tournament target tonight.
Yeah, absolutely is. And so, I mean, on the other side of this one, Eric Fetty, I've talked about it before. I like saying his name because it brings up nostalgia. It's enjoyable, but he's a very bad pitcher compared to the league average. And I'm just not going to be getting there. We look at some of the hard hit numbers. He kind of found some stuff in 2021 compared to previously. A 12.6% K percentage in 2020, improved that to 21.7%. Now we're seeing it at 22.6%, but still a 5.50 expected ERA. Doesn't really do anything. Low 90s fastball, not seeing a ton of curve spin on anything that he's really in his pitching arsenal. You're not going to be rostering much Fetty today, are you?
I can't imagine I'm going to roster much Fetty tonight. I mean, we have some other decent pitchers on this slide that we're going to talk about where I just don't really see the need to get to Fetty.
Yeah, I think the best thing I can say is maybe these strikeouts up at around 22% are going to maintain. And then on top of that, the top 2 pitchers tools got him at 14.4%. He makes it all right SP2 if you're looking for just a dart throw kind of a situation and you're chalky elsewhere if you're playing really chalky bats. But hard for me to believe that I'm going to get to a whole heck of a lot of him because the Miami offense is a little bit improved here compared to years past. Up and down the lineup, you've got some power. Jazz Chisholm's been out of his mind. Jorge Soler, Avisal Garcia, I expect to be better going forward. Joe Wendell, he went yard yesterday. I don't know what else to say other than that, but against a righty is always a little bit serviceable. Anything stick out to you particularly from the Miami side?
Yeah, Miami definitely isn't as bad as they used to be. I mean, this year they are striking out around 24% of the time versus righties, but they're still walking 10%, 150 team ISO and a 121 WRC plus. I don't hate them as maybe like a mini stack here, but it's really hard for me to get too much on Miami. We're talking about a low fours implied team total. Jazz at the top of the order looks pretty good. He's just very expensive at $5,300. So it's kind of hard to justify paying that much for someone on Miami when the team total just isn't very high and the team overall isn't super exciting for me. And plus Fetty does get a lot of ground balls, which is kind of annoying. So just a couple guys here from Miami, but other than that, it's not really a team I want to attack.
What a dick. How dare you try to pitch well? It's the worst. I hate it when that happens. Right. Comparable to Miami, where you talk about mini stacks, I think the kind of same thing shows up for me with Washington, where outside of Soto, outside of Cruz, outside of, that's kind of it. Josh Bell, he's been good too. I mean, those three guys, I feel like are the three-man team that I roster from Washington, and then I kind of do nothing else. They have a really low implied team total at 3.2 here tonight. I don't want to be going crazy. You can always get to Soto, but anything else stick out to you besides Soto on this slate?
No, Soto's definitely the one guy that would stand out. But obviously, you can always make a case for Cruz. He's been pretty cheap so far this year. He's below $4,000, but Pablo Lopez is a tough pitcher. I'd rather use Cruz versus lefty and rather get some lefties versus Lopez. So Soto, he's the only guy that would stand out. You could always look at Cesar Hernandez, switch here at the top of the order, and Josh Bell's got some pop versus righties. But outside of that, not a lineup that I'm usually too interested in.
So a little bit of pitchers, a little bit of bats. Anything else from this game for you?
No, it's kind of a gross one overall besides Pablo Lopez.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, in Washington looks like wind slightly blowing in from left field. Better for pitchers, obviously, when that happens. Look at me. I'm good at analysis. Let's go to Baltimore and New York. 3 total implied runs for Baltimore up against the Yankees. And it's not even that good of a Jordan Montgomery's good, but not that good in my opinion. And I'm not ever sure what to do with him on certain slates because I feel like he's overowned all the time. He's 44% owned at the moment, 7,500. He gives you a lot of savings on this slate. In the top 2 pitchers tool, 18% top 2 pitcher percentage. On FanDuel, he's looking like he's only about 3% away from Ohtani in terms of finishing as the top pitcher on the slate, garnering the 3rd most attention out of all pitchers over there. What do you plan to do with Jordan Montgomery?
Yeah, so if you're playing cash games tonight, he's kind of the obvious SP2. He just fits in really nice, and you can get plenty of bats mixed in there. If you're going up with Shohei Ohtani, I think that'll be a very popular pairing tonight. That would so right now in the ownership projections. But Montgomery's just in a good spot here versus Baltimore. He's pitching at home. He's got good win equity here. I mean, the Orioles only have a team total of 3.1 here, and the Yankees have a team total close to 5. And Montgomery's solid pitcher, 24% K rate, doesn't really give up too much power. And so far this season, the Orioles are really struggling versus lefties with close to a 30% K rate and ISO below 100. So I can definitely get behind some Monty. Is he in a super exciting pitcher to roster? No, but at $7,500, if he can go 5 innings and grab a win with a handful of strikeouts, we'd be pretty happy.
18.3% K percentage here in the early going of this season. I see, the walk rate has been up from years past. Well, from the last 2 years for sure. 4.7% 2020, 7.7% in that massive 2021 sample size, 8.3 here now, but still a 2.6 xERA, good real life pitcher, DFS. I always feel like he's overowned, but yes, I find it impossible not to have some shares of him. I don't know if I want you to necessarily rank out the top of the board at FanDuel yet. We have so many guys to get to, but is Jordan Montgomery somebody that on FanDuel you would consider for cash, or is Ohtani just kind of like the guy you're landing on the most?
I think depending on what you want to do with your bats, if you're going expensive with bats, I think Montgomery is definitely cash game viable. Obviously, Ohtani is really, really appealing, but the Guardians also have plenty of pop.
There it is. Oh, I'm glad it wasn't me. I haven't done it yet. But also, look what you're with. You do not give a shit.
I've been calling them the Indians for so long. It's so hard to.
I know. Also, it's like you can't waste a good T-shirt. It's hard. Right. It doesn't say something crazy, but yes, it's good that they changed the team name, but also It's going to be okay if you accidentally say it once or twice. I'll forgive you.
Yeah,
I guess here's the better question. Do you prefer Charlie Morton or Jordan Montgomery in tournaments? 7,700 and 7,800 respectively on FanDuel.
I like the strikeout upside more with Charlie Morton. I know the matchup
Same.
is really easy for Montgomery, but at the same time, Morton's got a lot of strikeout upside versus the Chicago lineup.
Yep, in tournaments, I think he's the guy that I just want to play more of on the blue site. Again, wanted to kind of touch on that because I know that's where you play a lot. I'm going to be playing there a little bit, but I've been finding it playing 3 sports at the same time because I mixed in NHL while on a live before lock yesterday and a 3-game NBA slate with news. Probably wasn't the best idea I've ever had in my entire life. I broke even, and that's kind of a win in my book. Let's go to the other side of this one here. Tyler Wells. I mean, this entire pitching staff from Baltimore, no bueno. Not going to be no bueno. This guy is no exception. 581 expected slugging, 15.4% K percentage. If we look over at the old top stacks tool, New York Yankees are at the top. Ownership share is a little low. I find it hard to believe people are not throughout the day going to be rostering more Yankees, but anything stick out to you particularly with Tyler Wells, or is this just Yankee heavy all the way?
I'm definitely looking to be pretty Yankee heavy. I know they've kind of struggled offensively to start the season, but after last night, I think that's definitely going to bump their ownership up as they had a fantastic. I think they ended the day with like 12 runs, which is absolutely fantastic. Joey Gallo feels like he got his first hit of the entire season. I think went deep, but Tyler Wells gives up a lot of fly balls. We're talking about a 54% fly ball rate since last season, 1.5 homers allowed per 9. Anthony Rizzo coming off a triple donger. I assume people are going to go right back to that, chasing it. But man, I like this entire lineup. It's a little expensive up top, but you can make it work.
I'm looking also Tyler Wells. I mean, he'd be like your Jacob Junis pivot, I believe. I mean, I don't know how San Francisco does this with pitchers all the time, but on SP2 sites where you're looking at DK, Yahoo, Jacob, why can I not say names today? It's okay. Jacob Junis, something like that. He's 6K over on DK. Tyler Wells, 5,500. I might get a couple shares because the Yankees are going to have strikeouts in that lineup long term. I think he gets eviscerated most times, but he's going to be like 1%. I think I'll have a couple shares. Does that make sense, or am I just a crazy person?
We've seen the Yankees struggle in really good spots this year, and if they're going to be high owned, I mean, it's a decent leverage spot for sure.
Okay. Just wanted to get your go ahead so I can blame you when it goes wrong. Baltimore Orioles bats. Trey Mancini is murdering the baseball. 592, 56.3% hard hit percentage. Surface stats be damned, I think, when it comes to a guy like that. I'm okay rostering some of him up against Montgomery's super popular pitcher. Cedric Mullins, you can always roster. Austin Hayes, Winyard, Santander. I think this team up against lefties, I might get to more Baltimore Orioles than the field. There's positive leverage to be had. I think there's enough power at the top of the lineup. Are you with me?
Yeah, I mean, they do strike out quite a bit, but Trey Mancini at 245 ISO to lefties, Ryan Mountcastle 238, Austin Hayes 228. He was a guy who played a lot versus lefties last year, and it did work out kind of often. And even Chirinos, if he's in there, 192 ISO versus lefties. So I don't hate it. I mean, Montgomery's always going to be massive chalk, so it's not like you have to get to too many Orioles to be overweight in the field tonight.
Yeah, and wind's blowing out to right in Yankee Stadium. That's what it looks like projected game time. It's 50 degrees, so, tick for tat, you're giving up a little bit, but you're getting the wind. I just think there's decent enough guys from the right side of the plate there going up against a lefty. I want to take some shots if they're going to be completely unowned. Pretty hard to believe I won't get to at least 5% of them in 150 on DK. Best of luck to me in that regard too. But hey, Yankees, positive leverage, top stack on the board right now. I can't believe they're more popular. Are you on board with that sentiment?
With the Yankees?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, it's Tyler Wells. It's any single time we're going up against an Orioles pitcher, I'm always on board with the opposing offense for sure.
Yep. Well, there we go. So we should roster some of these guys. They scored a bajillion runs yesterday. Anthony Rizzo, the key to the castle. He's been okay at baseball over the course of this season, or just his entire career, if we want to kind of break it down that way. Absolute beasting out. 52 fantasy points on DraftKings. Useful, my friend. Useful. DJ LeMahieu probably going to be leading off against Wells here in this spot. I think up and down the lineup, there's power. Joey Gallo joined the fray yesterday. Congratulations. Welcome to the party. He's still 3,300 because, why would he change that number? So he'll be popular again today, even out of the 7-hole. But Stanton, Judge, is there any kind of consideration you have on how you want to build this stack? Or is it just kind of whatever shows up because there's so much power to be had?
Yeah, whatever shows up. I mean, obviously the Orioles bullpen's not going to give you too much resistance either. So lefties, righties, I don't think it matters. Everyone's got power here. And some guys will strike out quite a bit, but I'll take the power upside.
Anything else from this game for you, sir?
No, I think both pitchers can be in. Jordan Montgomery is obviously the chalky option. Tyler Wells, like you were talking about, I think he's an intriguing tournament play because if anything bad happens with the Yankees, you're going to have some massive leverage. And plus he's $5,500, so you can pretty much play whatever offense you want.
Larry C. Waka 9,400 weird. You're telling me, my friend, everything's weird these days. But you know what's weird is that we still just at this point in time give away. I feel like we're giving away these tools and content for just $29.95 for the weekly pass, $4.95 for the Awesemo Plus MLB package, which is fantastic. The top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool, the projections, the ownership projections, best in the industry, bar none. If you don't believe me, look at all the screenshots that exist on Twitter. We have some of the best players in-house, in stable here. Not just Alex Baker, not just Steve Buzzard, DeColts Buzzard, but we have guys like Eddie Lai, who, I don't know, just decided to take down another MLB GPP last night, 50K, and I think he had 10K as well. They had like first and third in the $15. We've got guys that are just using the tools every single day to succeed. And if you want to join the fray, $29.95 for everything we have behind the paywall, but baseball, $4.95 for the weekly package. Stop guessing, start winning, and join us here at Awesemo Plus today. Moving along to the Boston Red Sox and Toronto Blue Jays. Michael Wacha, yeah, 9,400. Hey, how you doing this fine day? Been really good for what I believe Michael Wacha to be. 21.4% K percentage, 3.19 expected ERA, 0.91 whip. You can see all of that on the lovely lower bar. Once again, Tyler Xander crushing the game here. Do you think Michael Wacha has made drastic improvements this season, or are you expecting some regression?
Not enough improvements for me to want to play him at nearly $10,000 versus one of the better offenses in baseball. I cannot do this price tag at all.
Look at that breakdown. That worked very efficiently. You are by far the most efficient baseball analyst of all time. It's like, no, just don't do that.
I try to not to get a bunch of filler words in.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is just what it is. So we both have dogs named Duke. We're both very short on words, right?
Take it. We get the people out of here early enough.
That was a joke on my end, by the way, on the second part. Tyler didn't even seem amused. That Bon Jovi concert must have sucked. Are you okay?
Dude, I'm so tired. It's not even funny. Like,
oh, okay.
I'm just like zoned out right now.
That's fair. All right. Well, good to know. 374 expected slugging. He's been keeping the ball in park. I mean, this is just really good stuff. 3 barrels on the season out of 37 batted ball events, 3.3 expected ERA, 1.88 actual ERA. Well done, Michael Wacha. I still don't believe you. I don't understand how you go from a 439 ex-Wobicon to this 341. I don't understand it. You go from a 43% hard hit percentage to 32.4, and now you go up against the Blue Jays. Yeah, he's been serviceable, but I definitely, we'll see. I'm going to be getting some Blue Jays bats if they're not going to be as popular as it looks like they're going to be right now. And something tells me the Yankees get steamed up and Toronto will come down a little bit as we go on throughout the day. But Ross Stripling, this guy going back to his Dodger days up until now, pretty serviceable pitcher. How do you feel about Ross Stripling on today's slate?
I just don't really like both pitchers in this game. If we're looking at Stripling since last season, 111 inning sample size, he's about a 21% K rate pitcher, gives up some power, which we certainly do have some power in that Boston lineup. I just think this is kind of a stay away game from the pitchers, and I'm definitely much bigger fan of the bats.
Yeah, I mean, serviceable in real life. Like, I don't want to roster a guy with the 11.9% K percentage. It is 22.5% for his career. So we can expect some maybe good things going that direction. But the one drastic difference is he's not giving up hard contact yet this year. I'm guessing against Boston, that could definitely change. Looking at the top stacks tool, Boston, negative leverage. Toronto, negative leverage. If you had to pick one of these two teams to roster on DraftKings or FanDuel tonight, which one do you prefer?
For me to be with Toronto, I just like the lineup a little bit better, top to bottom. They also have about a team total about at least half a run higher right now.
So efficient. I was like, oh, I'm going to click on this. Nope. Don't have time. Don't have time. That's fine. Well, there you go. Let's talk through the Boston lineup here first. There's power everywhere. You would expect some regression here for positive regression for Trevor Story and Kike Hernandez, who have just been not good. No bueno beginning of the season. But Bobby Dahlbeck gives you salary relief. I feel like every single slate, and eventually he's going to double dong and you're going to want him. Rafael Devers is continuing to be him. Verdugo, 677 expected slugging, really showing out, living up to his high prospect days as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers as well. How do you feel about the Boston Red Sox, and who are your favorite bats to get to?
Yeah, the lineup looks great. I mean, top to bottom, we have a lot of power here. Story leading off 170, ISO to righties. Verdugo, 186. I mean, you only view him as a big power guy, but he has had some decent pop. Versus righties, Bogart's 215. Devers, the obvious, like the big play here, 328 ISO. JD Martinez at 240. And at the bottom of the order, guy you talked about, Bobby Dahlbeck, sitting at 225. So lots of good power bats here. If I had to pick one favorite, it's kind of obvious. It's Rafael Devers batting cleanup. He just absolutely murders right-handed pitching. But I mean, the whole top half looks excellent, but Devers is definitely my favorite here.
And looking over at the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously there's that guy. What's his name? Oh yeah, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And he's good. You should probably have some of him as a one-off at 5,800. I'm curious to see where him and Rizzo's ownership kind of get to. Yesterday, anytime somebody's coming off of 3 home runs and then they're in a great spot again against a righty, you're looking at massive ownership going Rizzo's way. I think that's just my assumption at 8:21 a.m. out here on the West Coast. Vlad Guerrero Jr., though, 5,800. I feel like that might come down from 17.9%, and that would become intriguing to me. Otherwise, just give me the lower owned of the two here. Zach Collins has been very serviceable. We'll see if Gurriel ends up back in that lineup. He sat out yesterday. I think he gets back today, but it is a hamstring issue, and so you never know if he gets a couple extra days. This is a team with higher ambitions than one game on April 27th, but anybody stick out to you specifically outside of Guerrero Jr. from the Toronto lineup?
Yeah, I mean, you have the two obvious options in George Springer and Bo Bichette. Both guys have plenty of pop versus righties, but probably my favorite here, just because of the position, is Zach Collins. And I said this in the last stream that we did together, but any single time I can get a catcher, left and righty spot, batting cleanup for the Blue Jays at $3,400, I will take it. He's got an ISO close to 200 versus righties, so liking that price point a lot at usually a pretty bad position.
Be very, very conscious of cognizant of what that ownership is going to be on both of these two teams. I think Collins, I mean, I've been rostering him a ton with you too. There's no doubt that he gives you a catcher batting up in the order and salary relief on the best offense in baseball, 3,400. I think he's going to continue to be popular, but you want to just be very conscious about where the ownership is coming on for both these teams, because as it stands right now, both negatively leveraged. You want to find specific ways to get different. If you had to go to the back half of this lineup, I'm going to just get weird with you, like 5 through 9 projected outside. Well, I guess Collins is projected 5th if Gurriel's going to be there, but let's go 6 through 9. Who's your favorite Blue Jay on the back end of the lineup?
I think it'd have to be Chapman, just because of the power upside. He's got the highest ISO versus righties between all these guys. Bradley Zimmer, maybe this is just me being a Guardians fan here, but he always had a little bit of pop versus right-handed pitching back in the day. He's dirt cheap, but man, the 9-hole never feels great to roster a guy at the very bottom of the order.
Bradley Zimmer hits the ball directly into the ground. He's just this tall dude, negative 1.2 degree launch angle on the season. Fast as shit. I will say that. That was always the weird thing, was like, I remember him batting 9th for your Guardians. Again, you're wearing the wrong shirt to play this mind game with me. But, you basically had him batting 9th. And I remember a game where he donged and stole a base his first 2 at bats. And I was like, where did this guy come from? It was weird.
He's got upside, but I mean, he just really hasn't flashed it to his potential.
Yeah. Also, somebody said that I need more caffeine. I do not, but you know what? Cheers. Let's keep it on rolling. Anything else from this game?
No, I like the bats. Don't like the pitchers.
Same. Chicago Cubs, 3.5. Atlanta Braves, 5 total runs here in this one. Mark Leiter Jr., 20% K percentage for the Cubbies here in the early going, 6.79 expected ERA, going up against Charlie Morton. One of these pitchers is not like the other one. I'll let you tell the people which one I prefer more.
I'm going to guess you like Morton, and I'm right there with you. I love rostering Charlie Morton. He's really cheap today, $8,200, and he's not going to be as high owned as some of these other guys. He's still going to have ownership, but I definitely love this spot versus the Cubs. But a 3.5 implied team total against them. Good win equity. The Braves are in a fantastic spot, arguably the top offense on the entire slate. You're going to see them some very high ownership today, but love Morton, 28% K rate, 3.4 X. Doesn't give a lot of power. Hard not to like him here.
Hard not to like him here. I think that pretty much is what it comes down to. I think there's some bats you can isolate. Atlanta, it's been a little bit warmer comparably to other ballparks, other spots. Let me see. Let me find the weather here. I will do that in, I don't know, a couple minutes. I'll find that here. As we're going to the other side, Mark Leiter Jr., I don't really know what to think about him. He's got a 6.6% top 2 pitcher percentage, only 1% owned. I guess he falls into that bucket with Tyler Wells, where chip in a chair, have a shot at it. Good luck. But anything stick out to you specifically with him?
I'm just going to stack against it. I know the Braves are going to be really chalky, but I don't feel comfortable rostering him on this slate.
That's probably the right way to look at it. Again, 150, if he shows up in one or two of mine, just for the heck of it, for shits and giggles, I'll probably have a couple shares. But as you said, I think offense is on the other side. That's where we're going to be looking at. But let's start with the Cubs side, where Suzuki is God. God is Suzuki. Wilson Contreras, 506 expected slugging. Lots of ways to stack up this lineup if you want to go up against more. What sticks out to you there?
Rafael Ortega at the top of the order is the one that's probably the most intriguing. He's below 4K. He definitely has some pop versus righties. The problem is Morton is a guy that does not allow a lot of power, and some of these guys do strike out quite a bit. So I'm just not seeing a ton of upside here from the Cubs. About 3.5 implied team total. I believe that's a little bit higher than what I mentioned earlier. Might have went up a little bit, but the Cubs don't look good to me. Maybe outside of Ortega and Suzuki, obviously, but he's also priced to the moon. So it's really hard to get there as a one-off.
My Duke decided to jump on in. My Duke decided to hang out, and now he's leaving again. Oh, sad times. It's all right. Is Bruce hanging out over there? I don't see Bruce in the house over there for Tyler Zander. No, lucky guys.
Yeah,
and then you said Duke.
Yeah, he's still mad at me because I went to the Bon Jovi concert last night and I left him home alone. He's still not happy with me. Yeah.
Well, he'll get over it because dogs get over it. But also, Chris, your Duke is where? He's at Mom's house?
Yeah, in Ohio.
Oh, that's sad. But anyway,
yeah.
Shout out to the Dukes. Shout out to the Dukes. That segue to the Atlanta Braves. There's no segue. It's just I'm going to talk about them now. Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozuna, just bright red on the old StatCast page, the old baseball savant. Hard for me to say anything against playing those guys. Ozzy Albies leading off, of course. Even guys like Dansby Swanson, Travis d'Arnaud, I don't know how you don't have interest in this team top to bottom. There's a lot of ways to stack them up. They're going to be the most popular team on the slate here, but I think there's ways to get different. Is there a specific way that you have in mind to get different stacking up Atlanta?
I mean, just even using some of these guys at the bottom of the order. I know they're not going to, project as well, but I mean, there's no reason why the guys at the bottom half here can't do nearly as well as the top half. At about half the price point, you have Travis d'Arnaud cheap at catcher. He's sitting in the middle of the order, kind of like he's basically Zach Collins on a different team for this slate. Alex Dickerson's free. Adam Duvall's free. We know he's got plenty of pop at 267 ISO versus righties, and always has had a really good fly ball rate over 52%. I believe it's Demerite. I believe he went deep last night.
Sure did. Did you see the clip of him basically giving the fan and being like, I'm going to hit a home run for you? He hits a home run and gives the fan a high five after he hits it.
I did not see it, but that's awesome.
It was pretty great. That was the best moment. I don't know. It's just baseball. Baseball has these moments. We've had some really bad ones of late, so I'll take anything that's really good. But this guy was a first round pick. He's expected to be pretty good long term.
Yeah, and he's still very, very cheap over on DK 2100. Very cheap on FanDuel as well. Then Dansby Swanson, I know he's sitting at the bottom of the order these days, but he still is nice at close to 200. So while the top half is going to be very high owned, I mean, just getting some leverage on the bottom half, they could do just nearly as well tonight.
All right. Well, Dookie's trying to be, he's saying go on to the next game. So we're going to go on to the next game. Detroit Tigers, 2.9 implied run total here against the Minnesota Twins. And why does a 2.9 implied run total exist? Well, because Joe Ryan has been the Minnesota saving grace of the mound. This guy, I mean, I don't know how Bailey Ober ends up getting all the hype. We end up getting Joe Ryan in the trade last season with Nelson Cruz, and life looks to be good here. Is Joe Ryan somebody that you're as high on as what the top two pitchers tool is?
Oh, I love Joe Ryan tonight. You can make a case for him being the overall SP1. I mean, a 2.9 implied team total. Pretty good chance for a win here. 29% K rate since last season. Not a huge sample size, but we know he's got the upside. The one thing I will say is he gives a lot of fly balls, but I'm not too concerned here versus Detroit. I am definitely a big fan of Joe Ryan. He's a little bit expensive, but he's kind of a nice pivot off of Ohtani up top.
Sure is. I think he sticks out as a guy to get to here on this slate. And on the other side, do you believe what Michael Pineda's up to here lately?
I stacked against him versus when he was facing off versus the Yankees, and I believe they scored 0 runs. It was not a fun time, but I don't believe he's going to keep that up.
I mean, it's just insane what we're winning. Duke, tell you what, this guy, he just wants to give all the baseball analysis today. That's fine. That's fine. But Michael Pineda, we both don't believe what's going on here. So that means that both offenses, one offense in this game is going to stick out. That is going to be the Minnesota Twins for me. I don't believe anything that Michael Pineda's up to here, and there's tons of power up and down this lineup. And have you heard of Byron Buxton? He's pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard he's a pretty solid player for the Twins.
Yeah, so tell me how I should be stacking up my Minnesota Twins today.
If you're stacking the Twins, I think you have to have Byron Buxton in the lineup. He's very expensive, but we talked about several cheap-ish pitching options and bats to make that work. Obviously, Arias is fine at the top of the order. Polanco. I love Max Kepler. A few years ago, I was rostering him every single day when he was like the hottest player on the earth. That's definitely came down quite a bit, but $3,100 batting cleanup with the guy that's got a decent amount of pop versus righties. I think he's arguably the best play in the Twins today.
Well, also, was yesterday the greatest walk-off in the history of baseball?
Oh, I believe I saw it. It was the Twins, right? And they had that.
Sure was. And my Minnesota Timberwolves broke my heart. So, of course, that was like the charity prize from God being like, you know what? We're going to smite you in the playoffs. But here's this random game in April. And congratulations, you just won out of the middle of nowhere. It was trash.
Wasn't a bunch of throwing errors? I believe.
Tons of throwing errors, like 3 throwing errors or something ridiculous. Couldn't believe what was occurring.
I mean, they had to give you something after what happened in NBA, right?
Do you watch NBA?
Not really. I saw the ending though. Some clips.
Well, talk to me about the Detroit side. Is there anything you want to isolate against Joe Ryan at all?
The only player I would want to roster is Awesemo here. Obviously, got shipped from Tampa Bay. Outside of that, you have a lot of strikeouts. Javier Baez, Miguel Cabrera is not a guy that's super strikeout happy, but he also doesn't do much these days. He's just kind of old in there. Torkelson's fine, but Meadows is the only guy I'd have any interest in. Joe Ryan, I think, just kind of obliterates this lineup.
Well, let's jump over to Houston. 4.4 implied runs. I'm going to go take him in the other room here while we jump over to this Houston side. Talk to me about Christian Javier and Glenn Otto, the two pitchers, but massive totals existing in this game.
Yeah, I think both are somewhat not maybe both. Christian Javier is the only guy I find a little intriguing here. 4.1 implied team total against him. He is a slight favorite. Does have a 31% K rate since last season. The only problem is the walks have always been there for him. And that's probably going to be a continued problem. He also gives up a decent amount of fly balls at 48%. Glenn Otto at $6,500. Extremely tough matchup here versus Houston. I will say in a short sample size, he does have an xFIP of 3.3, which isn't terrible, and a 25% K rate. Also doesn't give a lot of fly balls, only 27% of the time, and hasn't allowed a lot of homers either. The problem is he's facing Houston, which I don't usually like picking on Houston unless I have an elite level pitcher like a Shohei Ohtani. I don't think Glenn Otto is going to get there today. Both pitchers just not really on my radar. Javier, if I had to pick one, but either way, I'm not really intrigued.
Look at you filling up all the airtime on all the planet. I really don't want to be rostering either of these guys. We are looking at bats in Arlington here. I love the Houston Astros. I love stacking them up every day. You get Kyle Tucker. He's been really popular on the back end of this lineup, and I don't really even know what to think about that because I basically got him at no ownership. Looks like there's positive leverage here. That's going to make Houston one of my favorite stacks to get to. Looks like third highest top stack potential on the board, or second on DK. I mean, this is just all systems go with Houston, right?
Oh, yeah. And any single time we can roster Michael Brantley, I'm here for it.
Okay, that Duke's tilting me. You're tilting me. You know what? We're going to be all right, though. We're going to be all right. Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, confirmed better than Michael Brantley, right?
Yeah, on some days.
Oh, my God. Don't do that to me. Pena, probably going to be back half of this lineup. It's been crazy seeing him go from leadoff, which was amazing. Now he's on the back half of the lineup. He's super expensive, but that's one way to cut out ownership on DK. Anything else stick out to you from the Houston side?
No, the outfield just looks really good. Tucker, Brantley, Yordan Alvarez. I think these are definitely the top targets here.
All right. And from the Texas side, again, I think I'm with you, where I think we want to be getting some Texas bats going up against Christian Javier, even though he's had a ridiculous K percentage, ridiculous expected slugging here in the early going of this season. I don't know what to do with all of this. There's going to be strikeouts to be had. I think Javier was the guy you said you'd have more preference for, but I still think we can go up against him with that 4.1 implied total. What are you going to do with the Texas Rangers?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a pitcher in this game, it'd be Javier, but on the slate overall, I'm not going to really play either. They just don't really present the upside for me. If I had to pick anybody from the Rangers, I think the lefties probably look the best. Brad Miller, Corey Seager, Nate Lowe. Obviously, if you're full stacking, Marcus Semien, Mitch Garver, two excellent bets, from the right. But I mean, outside of a couple guys, this is not a game I'm super excited about for the Rangers. I'd much rather get to the Astros bats, but the Rangers are definitely have similar ownership.
Anything else from this game for you?
No, it's kind of an interesting one where I wouldn't say the pitching is terrible, but the bats are pretty good.
All right, we go to the Cleveland Guardians. They are the Guardians, my friend, going up against the Angels here. 7.5 implied total here in this game. On one side of the mound, you have Zach Plesac. I don't really know what to say about him, but Shohei Ohtani, I have lots to say about him. My favorite player in baseball, a lot of people's favorite player in baseball. Talk to me about Shohei, the most popular pitcher on this slate, coming off of an evisceration of the Houston Astros.
Yeah, there is just about no reason not to like Ohtani here, besides maybe the Guardians not being a big strikeout happy team, but neither the Astros, and we saw what happened. I mean, Ohtani's just an excellent pitcher, and it always seems like he's a bit cheap over on DK. On FanDuel, they price him correctly. He's usually one of the most expensive pitchers on the slate, but DK usually makes it pretty easy to get to him. He's only $9,000 today, 31% K rate, 3.3 xFIP since last season. Doesn't give up much power. The only issue with him is sometimes if he's off his game, he can start walking guys and getting himself in trouble, but he did limit that second half last year, and he's been solid so far this season. So don't see a reason not to like him besides high ownership, and he could get blown up, but I don't really see that happening.
You don't want to play Zach Plesac, do you?
I don't. Look, I'm a Guardians fan, but Zach Plesac, while he's a fine real life pitcher, he just doesn't strike anybody out. 16.5% K rate, which I just can't get behind.
You're a realist. I like that about you. As we start to get to know each other doing these shows, I appreciate that. Yeah. People who are just, again, I'm very honest about my basketball team, my football team, the Vikings, let's be serious. And of course, the Twins. I'm very honest about our chances. I'm irrationally hopeful about Byron Buxton, but stay healthy, young man. Stay healthy. 14.5% K percentage for Zach Plesac. He doesn't miss bats. 635 expected slugging. He gives up a lot of hard contact. We know where to kind of go with at the top of this lineup, but I always tell people, don't sleep on Joe Adell. He is going to have massive power at the big league level as he continues on with his career. Can definitely strike out a bunch, but when you get these contact pitchers, it spells disaster for the likes of Zach Plesac. When you have Stassi, Adell, those back half guys, and now Taylor Ward come into life. This is a team I want to get to a lot. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is a lineup that's got a lot of power. Now, they do strike out quite a bit. I believe their current lineup's got about a 27% K rate since last year. But, I mean, Taylor Ward, 238 ISO so far versus righties. Obviously, he can't play Ohtani, but he'll be in there. That's a ton of power. 425 ISO for Mike Trout. I believe he's now at 5 home runs so far this season. I think 3 in the past couple games. He's been on fire. Jared Walsh, Anthony Rendon, Brandon Marsh. Top to bottom, while there are strikeouts here, a lot of power. So with a guy that doesn't really miss many bats, I don't see a reason to like Plesac, and I think the Angels are definitely a decent stack tonight.
How about the Guardians going up against Ohtani, who's definitely shown a propensity to give up walks, shown up a propensity to blow up? I mean, for me, it's almost like insurance stacks in my 150. He's going to be the most popular pitcher in my lineups. He's the most popular pitcher on the board today, but only a 28.3% top 2 pitcher percentage. And there's usually positive leverage to be had going to teams like this. 2% of leverage right now in the top stacks tool. Is Cleveland a team you might land on a little bit?
I'm going to have a hard time getting to a lot of Cleveland, but just to get a little bit of leverage, like, you don't have to play too many Guardians to get leverage on this slate. And they have been hitting well so far to start the season. Like, this is not a terrible lineup. I know there's not a lot of name value, but these guys have been playing well. Miles Straw, we tried to fight some fans a couple days ago. Ahmed Rosario, Jose Ramirez, Framil Reyes, Josh Naylor. I mean, the top half's not too bad. Obviously, the 2 main bats here, Jose Ramirez and Framil Reyes, with the most pop. 290 ISO for J-Ram, 254 for Framil Reyes. A lot of these other guys are kind of contact hitters, but they could be kind of pesky enough to hit the Angels tonight.
Anything that sticks out to you elsewhere in this game? We should play Ohtani and Trout. Well done, Eric. Good job by me.
No, I mean, for the most part, I'm going to be just kind of focused on Shohei Ohtani. I think getting to a little bit of Angels as far as my stacks go is going to be a decent choice. And then just to get leverage on my non-Ohtani lineups, maybe get to some of those Indians as maybe a mini stack.
One more game on this main slate. Then we're going to talk PrizePicks, and we'll go to the 3-gamer to round out this show. I think it'll be a nice tight hour. Well done by us. Well done by you, because again, without your short, pithy, concise, and amazing analysis, this wouldn't be possible. Thanks for believing in us, fam. Oakland Athletics, 3.3 implied total, going up against San Francisco. Paul Blackburn on one side, but I do want to talk about Jacob Junis first, because he's 6K. He's projected to be the long reliever in this spot. And I think it's 60 pitches. He's in the realm of playable on this DraftKings slate. I don't think we have to think about anybody like this, period, on FanDuel. But 5 innings pitched, 61 pitches in his first outing. The stuff looked pretty good. Ground balls, six ground balls, 5 fly balls there, 21.5 DraftKings points. Is he in the realm of playable for you as an SP2 on DraftKings today?
He's in the realm. He probably feels a little bit better than Tyler Wells because the matchup's pretty good here versus the A's. We're talking about a team total in the very low 3s here. And if he can go, I'm not sure if he can go 5 innings, he'd have to be pretty efficient. But if he did, I think there's a decent chance you could get a cheap win here. But he's not something I'm going to get to a lot of for sure.
And then on the other side, Paul Blackburn, I really don't have a lot of interest playing righties up against the San Francisco team that is just laden with lefties. That's like something you say before shows to warm up. But Paul Blackburn, super low walk rate, 25.5% K percentage here in the early going of this season. But he's at the very bottom here of the top pitchers tool, 5.3% top 2 pitcher percentage. I can't imagine I get to much, if any, of him. That's not a guy you have considered for DK, obviously not for FanDuel though, right?
Oh, not at all. I mean, I know it's been up a little bit so far this year, but since last season, 53 inning sample size, he's at a 17% K rate. Doesn't really walk too many guys. Gets a lot of ground balls, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, this Giants lineup definitely has a lot of guys that would pop versus righties. I mean, at the top of the order, Jock Peterson, 235 ISO, Brandon Belt, 337, Crawford at 225, Estrada even 215 ISO. Like top to bottom, this lineup looks pretty darn good power-wise versus righties, and Paul Blackburn's not going to miss too many bats, and these guys don't really strike out too much either.
He sure is not. Let's talk first side of this. Again, you're going to get Sam Long starting off. Jacob Junis is going to be the guy who primarily plays the bulk of the innings. And going back to his KC days, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some drastic improvement there, but I think there at least has to be, there's a little bit of interest that I have in Oakland here. It's the worst ballpark you could possibly be in, but there's some Oakland bats at the top of this, specifically Sean Murphy is a catching option you can always get to, I think. But does anything stand out to you from the Oakland side?
Definitely not a team I'm going to stack up. I think using some of these righties for power might be somewhat interesting, or even some of the lefties look fine. Sean Murphy's really the only one that stands out to me. Seth Brown's got a lot of pop in his bat at 271 ISO. But other than that, I'm not super intrigued about the Oakland A's.
Yeah, I'm really not either. I mean, Christian Bethancourt could be a cheap guy at the top end. There's like a one-off, but looking back at some of his stuff, I mean, he came out of the middle of nowhere, 2022 here. It's been 267 XWO, but we don't have to get carried away with this team. Said it just was one of those things. You look at positive leverage in the top stacks tool. Jacob Junis thought maybe about it, but I'm thinking kind of not on the other side. Now let's go to San Francisco to round out the analysis of the main slate. San Francisco lefties up and down the order. Not as fun without Mike Yastrzemski in that lineup here, but Brandon Belt second. That's definitely a guy at 5,700 goes in that top end of first baseman along Vladimir Guerrero and Anthony Rizzo. This could be the late night hammer, perhaps, out of him going up against a righty. You got Brandon Crawford will be up in that order as well. How do you feel about the San Francisco team as a stack?
Oh, I like it. Now, their team total is not very high. We're talking like the low 4s, which kind of seems a little low in my opinion. So they shouldn't, I don't believe they're grabbing too much ownership in the top stacks tool. Yeah, they're currently sitting at about 3%. So I definitely like being overweight on that. This is a pretty good spot versus Blackburn. And I already mentioned it, but this team's got really good power versus righties. Jock Peterson, tons of pop. Brandon Belt, very expensive, nearly $6,000. But Crawford, I think it's a pretty decent stack tonight to get a little bit of leverage on.
Let's round it out this way here for the main slate, because Doug Weissman, he's been patient. Would you go? Who is your favorite? Where did the one? Oh, there it is. Who's your favorite pitcher on FanDuel for tonight?
Ooh, let me pull up my FanDuel stuff here. So
kind of rounding it all out. Let's give him the safest option on the board and your favorite upside arm that isn't Shohei Ohtani.
I think the safest option, once you factor in the price tag and everything, might just be Charlie Morton at $7,700. I know him and Montgomery are going to be pretty close, but I just like to strike it upside more with Morton.
Yep. And then if you're not going to play Ohtani at the top end, because we can all recognize that strikeout rate, he's going to be about 25%. That's identical to Morton on FanDuel. 50% of the field is going to be playing one of those two guys in every lineup. The other 50%, who's your favorite pitcher to get to?
Outside of those guys, Joe Ryan, I know you said you're a Minnesota fan, so I'm sure you're like that, but it's just hard not to like him versus Detroit. I mean, 2.9 implied team total, talked about, guy with close to a 30% K rate. I think he could easily cruise to a really solid outing versus Detroit.
All right. And then who is your favorite what is your expensive stack, your favorite expensive stack to get to on DK? And who's your favorite value stack to get to?
So kind of going to be chalky, but I do like the Yankees quite a bit. I think they perform very well versus
a positive leverage right now as it stands, but we'll see what happens throughout the day.
Yeah, and then as far as value goes, you can find a lot of value in those Braves bats, and they're in a pretty good spot versus the Cubs. So I think a lot of people will end up going with some Yankees and Braves stacks, but it's something I'm really getting to quite a bit.
All right. I love the Angels so much. I'm going to play a lot of Angels here on the top end, and value stack. I don't have the balls to say Oakland. I'm a weakling, but I will say they're not that expensive. So I'm okay saying Baltimore. Baltimore up against Jordan Montgomery. I don't love it, but I'm going to have a lot of it if he's going to be as popular as what I think he is. Anything else to cover on this main slate before we jump on over to the early slate?
No, I think this is actually a pretty fun slate. Good pitching options across the board, cheap, middle tier, or upper range, and we got some decent bets too. Should be a fun one.
I'm with you. Is Sam Long the best value pitcher? Absolutely not, Aaron D. He's going to pitch like a second.
Yeah, it's not. You're not going to get enough upside out of him.
I wish you were, because then that would make our lives a lot easier. But yeah, Sam Long, no. It's going to be Jacob Junis if you want to roster somebody from the San Francisco side. He has that PLR in green next to his name on DraftKings.com. Utilize it. And what you should really be utilizing is PrizePicks, the sponsor of the MLB Strategy Show, sponsor of a lot of great shows here at Awesemo. I love playing over there. I played over there a lot. Had a bet actually going with a buddy on the side of my PrizePicks action yesterday. I, of course, won because, we had Gabe Vincent and Max Strus just ball out yesterday. But PrizePicks, you can play cross-sport parlays. We could do MLB with NBA, with esports, with tennis, with so many different options. There's going to be an amazing amount of content at Awesemo that you can use to help inform your PrizePicks decision. You play 2, 3, 4, or 5 player lineups. You can up to 10x your entry fee. Use promo code Awesemo to get $100 first match deposit bonus and play over there. But most importantly, up on the screen there from Tyler Zander, you'll get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum just by depositing over at PrizePicks and playing at their site. It's really clean, easy to use, awesome interface. Promise you'll enjoy it. So stop guessing, start winning. Join us at Awesemo, but do it through this promotion at PrizePicks. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring the MLB Strategy Show today. All right, we jump on over to the early slate, my friend. We've got 3 games. We've got one very clear-cut offense. We have a lot of not very clear-cut offenses. Let's just dig right in. New York Mets, Carlos Carrasco. My God, you want to talk about improvement? This guy has drastically changed his outlook. How do you feel about Carlos Carrasco on this early slate?
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting option here. It's not like we have a ton of pitching options, so we can get too picky here, but I definitely think he's near the very top of the board with Dylan Cease as being the best pitching option on the slate. You can also make a case for the Dodgers guy who we'll talk about in a little bit, but Carrasco looks good. I mean, the Cardinals only have a 3.3 implied team total here. He's a slight favorite. Dating back to last season, 3.9 xFIP, 23% K rate, but like we said, he's been pretty solid so far this year, and I think Cookie is definitely going to be viable, $9,100.
Cookie. I mean, you just love this guy, don't you?
Of course I do.
You have to love him. I cheer for him. I hope he's actually better this season because last year was rough, to say the least. So glad to see him back. Glad to see him healthy. Anybody who battled cancer comes back and is like pitching at the top of their game. That's a fun story. So yay for that. Steven Matz on the other side of this one. He's had a K percentage of 27.9% in the early going of this season, but that's about 5.5% better than his career average. I see some regression in store for that number. 4.75 expected ERA. Decent enough, but against this Mets offense, there's no way I'm going to go crazy with it. Anything stick out to you with Steven Matz?
The only thing that really sticks out is the price tag. He does make some things fit. It's not like he's a terrible pitcher, and the Mets do have a team 12 around 3.5. So it's not like Vegas thinks he's going to get crushed. I don't think he gets crushed either. Problem is, I mean, since last season, about 164 inning sample size, 22% K rate, 3.7 xFIP. Like those are fine real life numbers, but for DFS purposes, it's not really getting the job done too much. But the price tag does kind of make up for it. He doesn't generally give up too much power and less than a 20% hard contact rate last year. It's not in the spot I'm in love with, but on such a small slate, I think you have to at least get to some Mats.
All right. And I'm with you. There's 6 teams to isolate here. There's 3 games. We have to be looking at offenses just all over the place. And I actually am pretty intrigued by the Mets. Positive leverage to be had. I know they're expensive, but I don't think the price is that prohibitive on either site, really, to just go nuts with the Mets. Are you going to get to them as much as me on this early slate?
I definitely have some shares. I mean, we're talking about 3 games, so it's not like I can't just completely cross off a team. And we know this is a pretty good offense. Starling Marte, Lindor, Pete Alonso, Eduardo Escobar, Mark Canha, who's really cheap at $2,500. The bottom half of the order gets really cheap, 6 through 9. I don't think anyone's above $2,500. The top half, obviously very expensive. And I think Brandon Nimmo, I mean, if you're playing tournaments, people might be a little bit shy to go lefty on lefty, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. So I get the love for the Mets. They do have a good lineup, but just kind of not a game I'm super excited about, but I have to at least have some interest because of how few games we have.
And on the St. Louis side, St. Louis, there's some bats to be had here. And if Carrasco shows any kind of regression, I had said this on the last show. What did Carrasco do? He made me look like an idiot. But is there any possibility that St. Louis is a team you get to?
Yeah, I mean, they have a very good lineup. I prefer using them versus lefties. They don't really strike out too much versus righties, though. And we still have plenty of upside bats here. Edmund, Goldschmidt, O'Neill's got a ton of power, whether it's versus lefties or righties. Nolan Arenado, Corey Dickerson. Like, yeah, I can get behind some Cardinals. It's a pretty low implied team total. I definitely have a lot of interest in Carrasco, but at the same time, I could kind of see it going either way.
All right. We jump on over to the next game on the slate. Man, we've got 9 minutes. We're going to get out of here in time. Look at this. A professional show was done here at Awesemo.com today.
I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, look at you. I was going to say, when you get mad, do you go, oh, I'm so upset?
Pretty much.
And then when you're happy, you go, oh, I'm so happy.
Yeah, whenever my guy homers, I'm like, all right, cool.
Oh, you're the best. That's so great. Appreciate the shit out of you because I'm just overacting everything. Kansas City, Chicago White Sox, Dylan Cease for Zach Greinke. Do not adjust your screens, fellas. Do not adjust your screens. Zach Greinke has a 3.2% K percentage this season. Do you know what that equates to, my friend?
Sure.
2 strikeouts. This entire season, Zach Greinke is 2 strikeouts, but he has a 2.25 ERA and a 1.19 whip. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. This guy is still in our lives. I don't know. Zach Greinke, are you going to possibly, I mean, we can't possibly roster a guy with 2 strikeouts on the year, can we?
I can't. Like, we need strikeouts for DFS, and this is not an easy matchup versus the White Sox. You know, they got plenty of power. And if you're looking back to last season, this is nothing new for Greinke not getting strikeouts. I mean, it's 16% K rate since 2021, and that's out of nearly 200 innings at 4.2 xFIP. Doesn't walk many guys. He's going to pitch to contact, which is something he's pretty decent at. He still doesn't usually get blown up, but for DFS purposes, I just can't imagine rostering Greinke, even though he's dirt cheap.
Neither can I, because 2 strikeouts is just not a lot. That's also hashtag math. And on the other side, there are strikeouts to be had with one Dylan Cease, my favorite pitcher in the American League, somebody that I bet for AL Cy Young. I just believe in his stuff, looking at this slider combination that he throws 40.8% of the time alongside a fastball, slightly fewer amount of the time, 37.8%. The guy has 2 just phenomenal pitches, mixes in a curveball once in a while, but 31.9% K percentage in 2021, 27.9% this season. The walks can get up there a little bit, 10.6% for a career, 10.3% this season, but a 2.22 expected ERA. He is just so damn good. I find it impossible that I'm going to land on many Kansas City, if any Kansas City bats, even on a 3-game slate. Are you with me and just being all aboard the Dylan Cease train?
Yeah, he's definitely my favorite pitcher on the slate. And it looks like right now the Royals are showing a sub-3 implied team total, similar to Joe Ryan on the main slate. I don't see a need to want to roster any Royals here. I mean, Dylan Cease above a 31.5% K rate, 3.6 xFIP. Like you said, the walks close to 10% since last season, but doesn't really give up too much power. And this Royals lineup, I wouldn't say is something too scary here so far this season. Small sample sizes, but 124 team ISO. Not striking out a lot, 19.9% of the time, but I mean, I'll take Dylan Cease at $8,500 all day. I think he should be the most expensive pitcher on the site, and he's not, which screams value to me.
Screams value. Yeah. He's going to be popular. He should be popular. I think FanDuel, on FanDuel, we just love Dylan Cease, don't we?
Oh yeah, $9,600. Again, cheaper than Carlos Carrasco, which I would take Dylan Cease straight up out of anybody on this slate.
Me too. And you love C is for cookie. So you love that guy. Nothing like some Sesame Street jokes to really take us home.
Right. I don't think I've ever watched it though.
It's a nut low on this show for me, and that's saying something. Let's talk the White Sox bats, because I think Kansas City, play Sal Perez if you want. On a 3-game slate, if you want to stack up a team against the second most popular pitcher, you should do that. But I'm not going to. Are you going to get to anything from KC?
No, I'm probably just going to be about all in on Dylan Cease. And if he happens to blow up, I'll just chalk it up as an L. But I think I just got to get to all in Cease here.
Yeah, it's called entering the main slate is what I will be doing. Lots of Chicago White Sox, second best top stack percentage, my friend. I think that they seem like a really good team to get to if they're going to be flat leverage. We'll get to this last game where the offense that everybody's going to roster is coming in. I'm going to just make my stand with the Mets and White Sox. I think there's lots of guys you want to get to. Tim Anderson, Andrew Vaughn, 659 expected slugging, crazy amount of power so far this season, 54.3% hard hit percentage. I find this just to be an intriguing lineup up and down the line, or up and down the board. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously plenty of power here, and Zach Greinke is not going to miss many bats. These guys are going to put the ball in play. We'll just have to see where it lands, or hopefully it lands in the bleachers. But man, it's just hard not to like the White Sox here. Anderson, looking at some of these power numbers, Anderson 154, but obviously a very high contact guy is going to put the ball in play. Roberts up there, 171 ISO. Yasmani Grandal, 254 at the catcher position. Kind of cheap at $4,200 for the power he offers. So I do like that. Jose Abreu, Gavin Sheets, Andrew Vaughn. I mean, I like the entire lineup here.
I do too. It just makes a lot of sense. Anything else from this game?
Well, I don't know why I was looking at a wrong lineup for Luis Robert.
It's okay. He's like hurt and not there, but you know what? It's okay. I didn't call you out on it because you're a lovely person, but Andrew Vaughn batting second. I think he'll be. I just love that. Yasmani Grandal, I expect him to get back on track here. Jake Berger, Adam Engel, Danny Mendick, if you need the salary relief in the stack, but everything is kind of all systems go for Chicago for me on this slate. Want to get to more of them, more of the Mets, because the Dodgers are crazy, crazy chalk. Let's be serious. The Dodgers going up against Arizona in the last game that we're going to cover here on the show. Julio Urias. We've got Zach Gallen here on the other side. Hopefully I did not. Let me see if I can fix that for you quick, because I typed an H instead of an S. Tyler, we're going to find out. Yep, see, I did that. Julio Urias, not Uriah. God, I had to catch it here last second. Whatever. Talk to me about the best pitcher long-term for long-term here in terms of like, even on this 3-game slate, you have Carrasco, you have Cease, but Julio Urias has won World Series for this Dodgers team. He stands out, and we saw Walker Buehler go over 100 pitches. Maybe after the Kershaw thing, first game out of gate, maybe there's a longer leash on some of these guys.
Yeah, I hope. I don't believe Urias is past, I believe he's gone 75 is his highest, which was his last start versus San Diego, but 2 solid starts in a row versus Cincy and the Padres. And I like the price point quite a bit. I think he's definitely underpriced over on DK. And if you don't want to get up to Carrasco, if you go Cease and Urias, you can basically do almost whatever you want with the bats. We're talking like around $16,000 used total, which is not a lot for your 2 pitching spots. A 3.45 implied team total against them. 26% K rate pitcher, doesn't really walk too many guys, doesn't give a ton of power. And the Diamondbacks lineup, not something I'm too scared of. And I think you could get a cheap win here too. So I definitely like Urias quite a bit.
And on the other side of the mound, on the mound on the other side, that would be weird if he was just standing there next to him. Zach Gallen has ridiculous numbers here in the early going of this season. 27.3% K percentage and a 232 expected slugging. Why are the Dodgers so popular? Well, because they have an all-star team. That helps. And also last year, 374 ex-Wobicon there for young Zach Gallen. 3.95 expected ERA. So we can expect some regression off of the 1.27 expected ERA through these early starts. Zach Gallen, if you're trying to get different in tournaments, roster this guy because there's Ks there, but also he's going to be going up against the most popular offense. I'm not completely against him. Are you?
No, I know we're talking about small sample sizes to start the year, but even if you're dating back to since last season with 130 inning sample size, 3.9 xFIP, 27% K rate. We'll walk some guys, gives a little bit of hard contact and power, but he's sub 7K. The Dodgers bats are very, very scary. But I mean, any single offense can have a bad night. We saw the Dodgers get off to a hot start last night with 3 runs, and they ended the game with 3 runs. If Zach Gallen got away from this game with 3 runs and a handful of strikeouts, wouldn't be the end of the world if some of the other pitchers kind of failed today.
Let's break down these Dodgers to finish it up. And Arizona, of course, but the Dodgers side, 1 through 9, everybody's playable. Who are your favorites to get to?
I feel like I play Trey Turner, Max Muncy just about every single night. Trey Turner obviously presents power, upside.
FanDuel has had broken prices on Muncy all year.
Yeah, I think I played Max Muncy in cash just about like for 3 weeks straight now. He's 70% owned every night. They won't fix his price. But Trey Turner's another guy I play a ton of. I know he's expensive, but I mean, what else do you want from a guy? He's got speed, power, contact, hits in the heart of the order of the best offense in baseball. Mookie Betts has been sub 5K over on DK, which seems a bit cheap. Then Muncy, obviously plenty of power at $4,500. Just everybody in this lineup looks good to me. I don't have any problem with any of them.
Cody Bellinger, confirmed fine, 526 expected, slugging, 53.7% hard hit percentage, leading the Los Angeles Dodgers. 1 year, $17 million. That's called a discount, which is weird to say out loud for everybody who thought that, I mean, he was terrible last year. Nobody's going to deny that, but it was always going to come back. Now we look at the Arizona side to round it out. Cooper Hummel, 570 expected slugging here. David Peralta went yesterday. I'm okay with it. Pavin Smith, nothing really intrigues me about him, even though it seems like he intrigues other people. Seth Beer, I do think is an all right bat to get to. But who are your favorite Arizona Diamondbacks to play if you're going to stack them up today?
Yeah, it's not the prettiest lineup out there, obviously, but Cooper Hummel leading off is going to be the one guy that most people would get to if using any of these Diamondbacks. But someone that I'm not sure a lot of people are going to get to, Jordan Luplow, $2,600. I'm not just being a Guardians homer, but back in the day, he was one of the best players in baseball versus lefties that 1 year. He was right up there with Nelson Cruz. Yep. He just absolutely murdered left-handed pitching. And even dating back since last season, we're talking a 211 ISO versus lefties. Don't look at the batting average. It's not pretty right. He does have power if he can make contact.
All right. Let's round this out, my friend. Let's get out of here. Great talk. Favorite pitcher on the early slate, favorite stack to get to on the early slate.
Yeah, Dylan Cease is the obvious option there. The Dodgers, obvious stack. If you're not getting to the Dodgers, like the White Sox.
All right, I'm with you. Guys, that was a very concise, perfect hour for the MLB strategy show. Tough to kind of make that happen, but Chris, great job by you, of course, because otherwise I'm just going to talk forever. Thank you so much to Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass here today. Stick around for the No House Advantage NBA strategy show. Actually, that's not until 1 p.m. Eastern time. So that's going to be Terry. That's going to be on that a little bit later here. MLB Live Before Lock is at 4:15 Eastern time today. That's going to be Eitan and Neil. That's going to be an awesome show. Check that out. NBA Deeper Dive, Alex and Adam. NBA Live Before Lock. That'll be yours truly and Josh. Me and Josh doing a show today. What plan am I on? And PGA Live Before Lock, Jason, Rosalind, Ben. Looking forward to all of that. Best of luck with all the baseball slates. He's Chris. He's a Guardians fan. I'm Eric. Go Twins. We'll see you guys later.